Okay, we've got Camtasia going. So anyway, today we want to go over the basic tools on the Dynamic Trader. These are all the ones that I use. Now, is there anybody that did not get the CB new time cycle ratios from me? They're supposed to go in your DT sets folder if you want to use the same histogram that I use. If you don't have it, then just email me later and I'll send it back to you. But that actually has to go into the DT sets folder. And if you're working on Windows 10, you actually have to go into public documents to find the DT sets folder. Okay, so but once you put it in there, we'll be able to use it for the timing histograms. So anyway, I just want to get started with the basics. And the first thing is, the way that you call up a chart, basically, I just put in the symbol here. Let's see if I can use my arrows. I throw in the symbol there. You tell it, what time frame you want. You can do daily or, any of the intraday charts. I will typically ask for at least 500 bars. Okay, that seems to be enough data to get me started. If I need more, I can always add more bars. Okay, and typically the way that I'm going to do it is, once you have the symbol in here and the time frame that you want to look at. So for example, if I want to put it on daily, I can just then click on this little chart here, right in here, and then it will open up a chart for me. So I'm just going to click on it, and then here's my daily chart of CXO. Okay, anyway, the one that I want to really work on is the 60-minute chart. It's the same one that I did the video on tonight, but what I also want to show you is that when you first open up an intraday chart, you're going to see these different colors, the blue and the gold, because this is, this differentiates the days. So when it turns blue, that's a new trading day. When it turns gold, that's a new trading day, and all that good stuff. Now, I really don't use that. So what I do is, if you toggle on the N key, it turns these black. Okay, so that's one of the first things that I like to do. Now, the other thing that I like to do, I like to see dark bars. Okay, because otherwise they're difficult to see. So looks like this should be the key to make those bars darker. So I'm just going to click on that. Okay, so now it gives me, the darkness that I want. Now, I believe that there are some settings, in the background where you could change maybe the background of the chart, if it hurts your eyes. Let's see, tools. Yeah, so there's, you can change the fonts here. You can set your chart font, your price label font, price axis font, time axis font, and the bar date font. So if you want it larger than what I have, you can do that. So for example, let's do bar date font, and if I want to change it to 9, we change it to 9, and then I'm going to have to show you how to label these, but it just became a lot larger than I normally have it. Okay, so you can set up the fonts. That's where you want to go into the tools, the fonts, and you can change these fonts. And I think as a default they're probably at the smallest. And then as far as colors are concerned, okay, now let me just take this off for a minute. If you want to look at candlesticks, what you do is you hit the J key and it will toggle these on and off. Okay, but I believe Okay, wait, I've got to shut that mic. Here we go. What I have to do is go to the colors. And I believe the default is black and white. So you're going to have to go into the chart colors and change the green, if you're going to use candlesticks, to up, and the red for the down bars. And let's see. Yeah, swings I'm not worried about. I really don't change anything else beyond that, but if you want to change the background, feel free to do so. I keep it as white. Some of you might want to, change the colors. And my bars, I just have them as black. I just kind of keep it simple. But like I said, if you want to change it, you can, and that's where you're going to go. So now that we have the, the bars the way that I like it, what else I like to do is put the indicators on the chart. So typically, I'm going to go to the indicators. I'm going to go to the moving average lines. For the intraday charts, I'm using 8 and 34. So here, you're going to go to 8. Line 2 is going to be 34. Okay, I use the closing price, no shift, and exponential. And you click OK. Whoops, why didn't it go on? Let's try that again. Indicators, moving average lines. Okay, here, I didn't have them checked. Here we go. So now the 8 and 34 will show up on the chart. And I use that for all my intraday charts. Now, one of the things that you want to do, so you don't have to do that every single time, is, let's see, I will take questions after I'm done. We'll see if we can kind of get some other things figured out, but let's just get through the basics first. And I'm going to go to the chart right here, where it says chart, and then I'm going to click Save Template As. So I'm going to save template as, and you could just name it, I just named it 834, without the CCI. Okay, I have a number of different templates that I would use, but I really only use, 834, for the intraday charts. And then I have a daily template that is different. But meanwhile, you would save that template, if you want to just save it as the 834, go ahead and do that. And then anytime that you bring up, a blank chart, like the daily, for example, if you wanted to add those to it, then all you need to do is then go to chart again, and then this time you're going to say chart load template. And then in this case I'm actually going to load the other template because this is a daily chart. So I'm going to load this template. Here's my daily template. And I also use the daily chart template for my weekly and any monthly charts I ever do. So the daily template includes the 5 and the 13 as far as exponential moving averages with the price type at the close. And then I use a 50 and a 200 simple. Okay, so that's what my daily template is. Okay, because I'd like to know where we are relative to these two important averages. And then also the 513 can be extremely important. I'll give you an example of how well it can work, and it's not always going to work on every stock. But if you use, so let's say we just put on the indicators of the 5 and 13. Okay, this should not be in calendar day mode. Okay, so here you can see, for example, when the 5 crossed above the 13, there were no sell signals until here. So for this whole run, if you kind of use that as a guideline, and again, not all trades are going to fit this because there are counter trend trades and you won't have this on the right side. But, take a look at some of these charts and see where it helps to keep you on the right side. We had another cross to the downside here. And you know what? It never shifted until just recently, just before earnings, where you had the 5 cross back above the 13 on that. Okay. Yeah, you can name it whatever you want. Tammy said she named it intraday. I think you guys can see what each other says on this. All right, so now, does everybody get how you do the templates then? Like if I wanted to use this as a template, the 513, and add that to a chart when I feel like it, you would just go chart, save template as, and then I would save it as, 513 EMA. Okay? All right. Now, besides that, let's go over some of the simple stuff. Over on the left-hand side, we might as well just, start over here. So this is, just the crosshairs. And, it'll tell you what the dates are if you want to use that. Okay, I really don't use this that much, but that's what it's for. I do not use the cycle accordion. I've played around with it, but I don't really use it, so I'm not going to go over that. I don't really use the date counts. Okay, I mean, that's something I would read Bob's stuff if you're interested in that. I don't really do the time counts either. That's something that you could potentially play with, but I don't really have any reason to add anything more than what I already do. Percentage price, I don't do anything with that. I don't do anything with this. This little square draw box, every once in a while I will use it to illustrate, something that I want to look at. So like if I want to say, hey, look at this area on the chart, I'll just, click on the box and then, drop it on the chart, and it would just be for illustration purposes. That's about it. Okay. So let's see. Let's go ahead and just get rid of that. Oh, as far as erasing things, right click and you'll find erase right here. So when you right click on top of something, it's a smaller menu, but I just want to erase this. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Right click and erase. You can do an erase all and it will take everything off of your chart, except for, maybe the indicators. But it will take all the price work off of your charts. Let's see. So above the box, we have the add text box. And since you can't really see, when you make a cluster, you can't really see the levels very well. This is where I'm just gonna, type in some numbers that overlap 343, whatever. Just that overlap the areas. But I'm going to show you how to see the lines, because you're not going to be able to read them initially. Okay, but we'll get there. I also want to show you that you can label open, high, low, or close levels. So for example, if I want to show where a high came in, I'm going to right click on this. You have the choice of open, high, low, close, just a price that you pick. And then there's also a vertical tool, which I'll use for timing. If I have to kind of line this up with timing, I'll use that vertical bar. But in this case, let's just say that I want to label the high. So I'm going to right click on it, click on the high, and then just drag it over to the high and click on it twice. And there, it'll it'll go to the high of the bar, and it will tell you exactly when the high occurred. You know, the date and the price. Okay, so that's that tool. As far as labels, well, this one in here, this pivot label, I every once in a while might, you know, click on one of these and just, you know, use that. But I don't very often. But what I do use sometimes, you know, if I'm showing an example and I want to show some, you know, numbers on the chart, I might use that. It's really, you know, for Elliott waves, but I am not an Elliott wave person, really. I think that it has a whole lot of value, but, you know, I don't actually do it myself. So I'm going to erase all. So I right click and hit erase all just to get the rest of that off of the chart. All right, so the next tool above that are the date labels. Okay, so does everybody see where these date labels are? You're going to right click on those, and this is what I like to look at. Okay, I use the date, the price change, and the number of trading days or bars. Okay, I guess you could do calendar days if you want. I don't use that. I'm just showing you the tools that I use. If you want to do something else with it, then you have the choice, you know, to do that. But that's what I do. Now, there's an auto function that you can use, but I don't use that. So I just use the date, the price change, number of trading days. Okay, and this is how I compare swings in the same direction. But when you want to label a bar, you know, you're going to choose the date labels with the left mouse click. And then to label a high, just go on top of the high. Now the pink that shows up on the chart shows you which bar you're actually on. So in this case, if I want to label the high, I have to make sure that I've got, you know, this high bar, and then just click on it, and there's the label. You know, October 3rd, 233.47. Now it only says 0 bars because I have nothing to compare it to yet. But if I click on the next low, okay, then it tells me that the next low is 6 bars from this high, and counting the first bar as 0. If you want to label a high, you have to go on top of the bar, you know, on top of it. If you go below it, it's going to label the low of this bar, which is not what you want in this case. Now also, if I click on the date label and I go and label this prior low, then it's going to count the time from this low to this high, which is 10 trading bars. Okay, I use this a lot because I love to see the time between the swings, swing highs and lows and all that good stuff. Now, if you wanted to, for example, measure prior high to high swings like I had done on the S&P, I'll show you that example. Okay, this is with the daily chart. So for me, I usually just go to chart, load template, and I put the daily template in there. But let's say I just wanted to measure highs to highs. Then you only click on the highs to the highs. So for example, this high to 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 this high, and then this high, and this current high is now 38. Okay, so what's interesting about that is, for example, if you notice that there are some similar swings in time, you can measure, you know, I'm going to show you the timing tool, but you know, you'll be able to measure with the timing tool. You can use the 3-pointed timing tool and let's say you wanted to measure this 41 bars high to high, and then project that from this high, because you know we're close to 41 bars. You know, in a few days you're going to hit 41 bars. So those will be other time cycles that you can look at. But anyway, but that's the, you know, bar and date labels. So are we clear on that right now? As far as the bar thickness, well, there it is. That's this tool right over here. So the left is bold, the right is not bold. I like it bold. You know, I want to see these bars. Okay, so are there any questions so far on what I've shown you? I don't really use the daily pivot levels. I guess you can throw daily pivot levels on there. Honestly, I don't know how they're calculated, but I don't use them. So it's just not something I use. All right, so let's start next with the price tools. So here you're using two different tools for, you know, retracements and well, retracements and extensions will be on the same tool, but projections from 3 points will be on another tool. Now this is slightly different than something like Thinkorswim, because it gives you a separate tool. If you're coming from a high to a low, you're going to use this first tool here. But if you're coming from a low to a high, you're going to use the second tool. So I'm going to right click on top of this, and it's going to bring up the box. And then these are the ratios that I have, and I will take a snapshot of it. So let me grab my little Snagit here. I'm taking a snapshot. So this is how I have the price retracement set up. Now I like to color code them because I like to know what is inside of, you know, a setup. So I know that if there's pink in there, I have a 618 retracement. I know that if there's green, it's either a 1272 or a 1618 extension. Personally, I like to use, or actually I make the 618 darker. So you can click on this right here, and this will make that one darker. I also make target number 1 darker, the 1272 extension. Okay. Now what you can do once you set up the ratios the way that you want, and this is retracement ratios and extensions, because you know they're both using 2 points only. So we're just using the same tool. So you want to make sure that you put in, you know, both the retracement ratios and then the extension ratios. Okay, but that's how I color code it. You don't have to do it the same way. You can do it however you like, but that's what I do. It's always on the range, the high-low. My labels are on. Now, if you want to show the actual high and low that you're running something from, you click Show Reference Lines. If you want the program to automatically delete bars that it went through, then don't have Show All Projections on. And I'll show you what happens there. So let's just do an example. So if I'm going to run a high to low retracement, I'm going to use the first key, and I'm going to run this high to this low. Okay, so in this case I'm going to choose the first key, I'm going to click on the high, and it will grab the exact high. I'm going to click on the low, and notice that there are some before that 618 retracement, and notice that they disappeared. Okay. Now, if I had this set up, and that helps you, instead of having to erase all these lines, if it disappears, it removes it. I mean, it just removes it for you. But the reason why I would want to show all projections is when I'm showing an example, that I'm doing for a class, and I might want to show what was there. So let's say I take the high again to the low, click on the high, click on the low, and now I had show all projections, and these are showing up. So if there's a time where you run something and you're saying, well, where did those others go? And they disappeared. If you want to see them, then that's what you have to choose. Show all projections. Okay, I'm going to uncheck it for now. I'm also going to uncheck show reference lines because I don't want all these added lines. You might want to see them in the beginning so you remember which highs and lows you used, but I don't want to show the reference lines, so I just, now if I do it, then those lines won't show up. They'll show up initially and then they disappear. Okay, so that's how you're going to set up that tool. And what you can do, this is just going to go back to whatever you set up last, but you can actually save the set, and name it for yourself, and then you just know that that's a retracement set. If you want to choose different ones, I don't mess with it at all, but there are some people that that will do that. But you could just, like I just saved mine as CB. Okay, if you want to load a different set, you can hit load set and you can go ahead and do that, but I do not use that tool either. I just have my one default set and I work with it all the time. And any of you who know me, you know how many charts I run and how many lines I run all day long. But that's the way you want that set up. So let's just cancel that. Let me just erase. I'm just going to erase everything. So I'm going to right click on this line. I'm just going to hit erase all, and it's going to get rid of everything, including the labels. The only thing that doesn't leave are the indicators. Okay. Now, if you want to look at, there are some people that want to look at CCI. If you want, you can go down to the indicators, and I think I used a different length. I'll have to look at what I have in here. Indicator. Right, let's see. CCI properties. Okay, I haven't used this in such a long time that the ones that I had saved were 14 and 8, and that's all I use for the CCI. I'll have to actually go check my book and make sure that's correct. But it's different when you first, look at it. So you'd have to change it. And then if you want to get rid of a window, just right click on top of it. And then, you can either change the properties or you can change the size. If you want to change the size, make it extra large. If you want to change, right, let's see, change the size to tiny, change it to tiny. You want to get rid of it, I just remove the window. So some of these things you're going to, want to, play around with. It's your choice. Just, get the chart the way that you want it. But let's say that you wanted to add CCI on all of your charts, which, I don't want to, but if you wanted to, you would go ahead and put those other indicators on it. And then once you have it set the way that you want, and let's say you wanted a large window or an extra large window, go ahead and change that. And then go back to chart, save template as, and then name it. So for certain charts, you might want to look at certain indicators, then that's what you can do. But I'm going to remove this for now. And then we're going to look at the second price tool that we're going to use. So the first price tool only, we do retracements and extensions using 2 points. And if you're going to measure a high to low, you use this one. If you're going to measure a low to high, you use that one. And then we're going to use the 3-pointed tool. So this one is where you're going to measure a low to a high from another low. And the second tool is a high to a low from another high. And like I said, on the other programs, they usually only have one, and it's just you decide whether you're going to choose a high or a low first. And it works from there. But in this case, I'm going to right click on top of this projection tool. Now Bob calls it an alternate price projection ratios, right? So here I always use Symmetry 100%. Occasionally I'll add the 1618. Now some people want to use a 1272, and you can if you want to. I just have enough ratios that come together, and I just never have added the 1272. It's not wrong if you do it that way. It's just not the way that I do it at this point. But right now, let's say you just wanted to look at Symmetry, you'll just have the Symmetry checked. And I usually have this, a bold line, because to me Symmetry is very important. You're still going to have it as range, the default, and that's also high to low, which is the default. Labels on. Typically I'm going to say show all projections. And again, if you want the reference lines, it's going to be like this. This is where you take a low to a high and then project from a low. And it shows you which lines you used. It's giving you the reference lines of the low to the high and then the low that you projected from. So if you want to use that initially, feel free to do so. I do not use it because I'm constantly just erasing extra lines off of my chart. So for the setting, I will uncheck show reference lines unless you want them. Okay, so in this case, again, well, let me actually just label this for you. So again, to use the date labels, you're going to just left click on the date labels. If I want to label a low, I'm going to just click underneath the low, because if I clicked above it, it's going to show the high of the bar, and that's not what I want. I want the swing highs and lows labeled. So I'm also going to label this low, so you want to come underneath the low and it will label the low. I want to label a high, so I'm going to go above, and then I'm going to label this low because I'm going to project from there, right? So let's try that 3-pointed tool. If I'm going to run a low to a high from another low, then I'm using tool number 3, low to high from a low. So let's just click on, let's do the Feb 9th low to the September 21st high and project it from the December 26th low. And there's your 100% projection of that. And then another one that I would want to run, for example, would be the slightly higher low. So I'll measure a low to a high from that low. So that gives you slightly lower resistance. Now, I'm thinking this one oh no, we're on top of this right now. Yeah, that's right, 2692. So let me label that one for you. Okay, anything else we pretty much already went through, because this low to this high, you can see, that came in way over here. That stalled the market for like 2 days, and that was it. But since we went through it, I'm just going to erase it. All right, so that's projections, low to a high from another low. But let's say if you wanted to project, Let's get rid of these. A high to a low from another high. I'm just going to label the high to the low from another high. Now I'm going to use the fourth tool because I'm projecting lower. So let's take this high to this low, and I'm going to project it from here using both 100% and 1618. So we'll click on the fourth price tool, click on the high, click on the low, October 29th, and then I'm clicking on, okay, did I not put on my 1618? Hang on, I did not add the 1618. Okay, so I had to go and click on 1618 because I didn't have that in the default. So let's go back again, high to low from the high, and you'll see there's a 1618 below. This one you went through, so of course you're going to erase it because unless you're showing it for an example, if you go through it, it has no value. You know, there are just times where I leave it on to, you know, illustrate something like breaking of symmetry or something like that. Now there's another projection I can run. So let's also do the November 7th high. So I'm going to click on, and this, in case, since we have the tool that knows that your first click is going to be a high, even if I have my mouse underneath it, it's still going to grab the high. So I'm going to take the high to the low from the high. Okay, this has no value because, you know, we went through it. Now let's try it. Let's try that one more time where we just say we uncheck show all projections and see if they just disappear on their own. There's a certain percentage. No, actually it's still showing them. It works better on the retracements. And then there's even one more projection we can do. High to low from a high. Okay, so you went through the 100%, but you were still above a 1618 in this case. Now, to make things easier for your price work, we want swing files. Now, there's an automatic swing file that you can just go hit manual swings. Oh wait, nope. Actually, what you do, just press the S key. And you know what? It automatically picks some highs and lows for you. Now, if these are not the ones that you would want to use to do your price analysis, you would have to make a manual swing and do it on your own. But you'll see that when we did this, the automatic swings, it tells me that I have short-term swings and long-term swings. That's the default. Sometimes I don't want to see the long-term swings, so I just click on it and those disappear. But let's say if you wanted to edit these swings, you know, so that you can easily grab these highs and lows when you put this in a swing mode. Well, you can't really edit this because it's done automatically. So in that case, what we're going to do is create a swing file that you would use for both price and time analysis. Yeah, I don't really, you know, every once in a while I'll have the automatic swings on to help me pick highs and lows, but I usually want to run my own swing file, especially for timing, because if you have the wrong stuff, you know, the wrong swings, then you're not going to be able to, you know, grab the right highs and lows that you want, and you're not going to have the right highs and lows for the timing analysis. So in this case, you want to go to manual swings, the little blue swing here rather than the automatic. So I click on the blue manual swings, make a new manual swing file. Okay, now you can see in this case, this has a lot of swings. And I don't want all of these swings. So what I want to do is I typically change it to a minimum of 2 bars, and that will get rid of some of the shorter term swings. But then you change the percentage. And you change the percentage until you have everything almost the way you want it. But let's say, okay, this catches most of the swings that I would want to use for my price and time analysis, but I'm missing this little one here, and I want to use that for price work. So what do? Well, first, what you do is you save this swing file and you name it. So I'm just going to name this SPX Daily. So I know that it's a swing file for the S&P Cash Daily. And then hit close. And then the easiest way to do this, and you don't want to have the hot bars chosen yet. I'm going to talk about hot bars in a little bit. But with the hot bars, you don't want to have that chosen, otherwise you won't be able to edit these swings. So anytime where you find you can't click on a key high or low, check and see if you have the hot bars on or off. You want them off when you're first, going to create this. So I'm going to go back to manual swings. I'm going to go to edit swings with mouse. And then I'm going to click on above the high that I want to add. I want to click the low, below the low that I want to add. And there it is. And now what I can do is I can save this. So I go back to the swings, save primary swing file. Okay? And I originally saved it as, I named it as SPX Daily. So, it's just going to save it under the same name. So now, if you click on the hot bars, and you want to go from swing to swing, well, first of all, you have to have this little marker. So if you don't have a marker, click M. M toggles the marker on and off. And you're going to use this marker to decide where you are going to project your timing work from. So we do need that in the future. So for example, if we run, well, you're going to hit Shift and arrow. If you use Shift and arrow, it will take you to the next swing, high or low. If you hit the Control key and hold it down and use the arrow key, it will take you bar by bar, in case you need to, move over to a specific bar. Okay, so Control plus the arrow moves 1 bar at a time. Shift plus the arrow goes to the last swing. It'll move it like that, okay? All right. Now let's look at the timing keys before we go on to the timing histogram. And there's a tool that allows you to choose 2 points in time. That's this first one. And then here's the second tool that allows you to choose 3 points in time. I don't use anything else, for the timing, really, besides the histogram. So let's right click on top of this one, and I'll show you that I have all of these for the timing. And sometimes I might not use 2, 3, 6, so I can take that off or just delete it. But these are pretty much all the ratios that I'm going to use for time projections using 2 dates. If you want to use long lines, Like for example, well, I'll show you what it'll do. So let's say if I just click on this high and move this over, you know, it'll show me the dates over here, right? But let's say if you wanted it to go through this price action, so you click on the high in time, click on the low, but I drag it down to where I want the lines to show. That's what you'd use long lines for, you know, if you want to do that illustration. You can also run the retracement of that same high to low swing, and you can kind of look for time and price squares. So for example, if we traded into 618 in price within a bar of this next time window, that's something that you would watch for a potential change in trend. But the more important ones would be when you have the exact same ratio in price and time. So let's say if this was 618 in time and 618 in price, that you definitely want to look for a possible change in trend right on top of that. So that's where you would use long lines sometimes for illustration purposes. I don't do it that often. You're not going to see that on my charts that often. Okay, so typically I'm just using the two-pointed tool in timing. I don't use the long lines, but I have the labels on. And I just use, oh, you can change, yeah, I guess you can change the, well, you can mess with some of those colors for the actual lines, I think. But here, I try and match these up with the same code that I have on the price axis, so that, for example, if you saw two pink bars intersect, then you would know that you have perfect price and time square. Yeah, time and price square. Now, when you have, for example, oh, and you can, again, you can save the set, or this will just go back to what, you know, I mean, you can save it under your name or whatever. Like I didn't even save it in this version of DT, but you can save it if you want, and then change it if you want. But I just use the same ratios all the time, so I don't mess with it. All right, so let's say, for example, you want to use the two-pointed tool to measure a prior high to high. So you just, you know, choose the two-pointed tool. Now, if you wanted to make it easy so that you don't have to, you know, have a hard time picking the exact highs and lows, put it on hot bars. Because if you put it on hot bars, it will only go to a bar that you have in your swing file. So it will only go to these. So when you have, you know, a chart and it's kind of small, or you have to run a bunch of, you know, price work at once, then it makes it very easy to grab the right high and low because you've set it up in advance. So in this case, I have the hot bars selected. So let's say if I wanted to use a different low, I would have to take off the hot bars, because right now it won't go, you know, or a different high, for example, it won't go because I have the hot bars on. So if you wanted to change it, you have to shut those off for a minute. But here you can see that, you know, it's got, I clicked on a high to high. I'm going to erase the ratios that we are beyond. Well, in this case, pretty much beyond all of them, except for a 2618. So let's just try this. Let's get rid of that. Let's try the two-pointed tool to run a high and low in time. So let's say the September 21st high to the low that was made on December 26th. We went past 236, so I'll get rid of that. But we would still want to watch 382, 50%, 618, and so on. Okay, but that's just how you use the two-pointed tool. You can also do lows to lows. So you can do, I'm going to click on the October 29th low to the December 26th low. I'm going to get rid of the ones we've already gone by in time. Well, this one is today, so I'd leave that one. You know, there's multiple cycles that you can run. You can run another, you know, I can run the most recent. If you have the hot bars, make sure it'll kind of grab these very easily. High to low. Whoops. Now this has very few bars in this high to low. This is only 15 bars. So you're going to get a time bar almost every other bar. That's useless. So if you do choose to use a smaller swing because you want to see if it maybe overlaps something, just use the main ratios, which would be 618, 100%, and 1618. This is in the class that I'll be finishing on Thursday. In this case, all we have left is this January 31st, tomorrow. Okay, so that's the you know, that's where you can run any of the you know, highs to highs, lows to lows, highs to lows, or lows to highs, all coming from 2 points. Then if you're going to use the three-pointed tool, let's get rid of all this. I'm just going to erase everything. Let's say you want to use the three-pointed timing tool, and you wanted to compare swings in the same direction in time. So let's choose that fib from 3 points. I'm going to right click it and show you what I have there. For these I have 100%, 1272, and 1618. So in this case I have to choose 3 points. So I'll label these so when you go back and do it, then you can do it that way. Okay, so let's say you want to compare the September 21st high to the October 29th low to some of these other swings. So you're going to use the three-pointed timing tool, and you're going to click on a high, click on a low, and then project from another high. Well, in this case, the projection, it's not going in the same direction anymore. And this is part of what, you know, if you were in the class, you already know that this wouldn't be valid anymore because now it's a directional projection. But if you're comparing swings in the same direction and it's no longer a swing in the same direction, forget about it. Get rid of it. But let's check, for example, let's take that same three-pointed tool, and I'm going to check prior high to low and project it from this. Okay, so from the November 7th high. So this is where I'm projecting this high to this low, and then the alternate time projection is coming from this high, projected downwards. And now that came in on the 17th, and you didn't really see any change in trend there, but you know, that's where it came in. But that's how you would use that tool. The really good example that we had was, well, actually this TWLO. In this case, I just like to load the template. In this case, we had a prior high to low swing. If you clicked on this high, clicked on this low, click on this high, click on this low, because they look similar. And check this out. $27.34, $27.32. 8 bars down, 8 bars down. Well, if you took, well, you'd see this in price. If you took this high to this low, projected from this high, you know, you'd see where that price symmetry came in. And the time symmetry, you would be using this tool for 3 points. I would measure this high to low and project from this high. And you know, you can put it below the chart or above the chart. And this shows you where, you know, the 8 days and 8 days, or 100% of this high to low swing came in on December 24th. which was the exact low, and you had almost perfect time and price. Okay, so anyway, so that's that. But now we're going to probably have to take a little bit more time than I expected to just go through, let's say, a time projection. And let's do it with, oh, actually, I really wanted to do this example in CXO. So in CXO, let's say I want to make it easy to grab the key highs and lows. I'm going to make a swing file. That's too many swings in there, so I'm going to make minimum bars between the highs and lows 2. And I'm going to change the swing to a larger swing. Okay, so this pretty much has the swings that I want to work with. So I click Save, and I'm just going to save this as CXO 60. So I know it's a swing file for the CXO 60-minute chart. And we have the highs and lows labeled here, so I'll also do the time example on this too, but I first wanted to show you, if you click on the hot bars, then this will only grab these highs and lows of these swing highs and lows that we chose in the swing file, right? So let's do a couple things here. If you run the retracement, and you don't have to keep up with me, but if you run the retracement of the high to the low, actually let me label these. Because this is really kind of cool. So I'm going to label or run the retracement of the Jan, and you see that I don't even have the mouse on top of that high, but it's using that high because that's where the swing high is, that's closest. So I click on the high, click on the low, and you'll see here's a 618 retracement. Then I'm going to use a price projection tool from 3 points, and I'm going to compare this low to high from this low, project it upwards. So let's do that. So this is the Jan 14th low. One click. This is actually the third price tool, low to high, using 3 points. January 18th high, and project it from the January 23rd low, and you have 121.52. Oh, and here's the thing I wanted to show you. When you can't see these levels, you have to go to Tools. So I'm going to click on Tools, and you want to make sure that you have this checked because that's not the default. Show line values as hints, which basically means if you have that checked and you cursor over it, it's going to tell you what levels are in there. 121.52 to 55. Okay, so now I'm going to run a projection of using that third price tool. Run this low to this high, or to that high, project from this low. And so click on the Jan 23 low, click on the Jan 25th high, click on the Jan 28th low. Check that out. That comes in right over that at 121.64. And guess what else you can run? An extension. I want to run the high to low extension, extend upwards. So I'm going to use the retracement tool, the high to low, because I'm coming from a high to a low. So I'm going to click on the high, Jan 25th, click on the low, Jan 28th, and check that out. 1272 is right there. Now you have a cluster. So if you just mouse over, you'll see the levels. So it's 121.37 to 121.64. And I did the free video on that tonight, so you can go and watch that. But you should be able to replicate it pretty easily. And that's kind of a make or break decision. Because if this is a two-step pattern, and this resistance holds, you know, we should see a move down. But if we eventually, you know, if we stay above this low and then come through here, we are probably going here to the 1272 extension. Okay, so that's that. Yeah, you'll be able to get this on the video. So I'll probably email out where you're going to get the video once I figure out where I'm going to post it, or if I can get it on my YouTube channel. So now the last thing that I'm going to show you is the timing tool, the timing histogram. I only use one of the histograms, okay? Oh yeah, on TWLO, yeah, that was a daily chart. But CXO was the 60-minute chart. Okay, so in this case, now you can do timing on an intraday chart, but typically I do my timing on the daily charts. So let's see if I have a good example. Okay, this was, oh, now if you save a swing file, you know, because all I did was hit the S key and it put on some automatic swings. But I don't want those because I know I made a swing file. So if I go to manual swings, load primary swing file, and I find my SMH, then it's going to load the one. Oh wait, is it before that? I want SMH. Here it is. So SMH daily. So I just click on that, click OK, and it loads the swing file. So if I want to do timing, if I want to project for the next low, I'm going to run the timing histogram from the last high to project for the next low. If I'm going to project for the next high, I'm going to run it from the last low to project the next high, because I'm using directional, the directional report. So you go to Reports, Dynamic Time Projection. This is the only one I use. I've played around with the other ones. I don't use it. You know, I don't need them. You can do some custom time projections. I've done that in the past. It's a pain in the butt. But you can do this, or this is the one that I use. I have it chosen as Dynamic Time Projection. It has a directional bias. I click on Make a New Report. Oh, let's see where the marker is. It switches it to calendar day mode. And I don't want to use this date. So I'm going to actually close this because I didn't put the marker in the right place. So this is what you want to do. Hit the M key, and the M key was hiding on the January 25th high. I'm going to hit Shift and left button key, or the left arrow, to take me to project from the December 3rd high for the next low. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go back to Reports, Dynamic Time Projection. I'm projecting from this last high for the next possible low. Click on Make a New Report. You know, and you'll want to go back to this and write down the steps, I guess. Make a new report. Now, I want to start, the marker is on the right high now, the December 3rd high. You know, that's the begin date. So I'm projecting from this last high for the next possible low. What we do, and it's kind of a pain to explain, maybe we'll do it in the second one on, we're going to do this again on Saturday for whoever couldn't come. Or if everybody is here tonight, what we'll do is, you know, maybe just, I'll take questions that day. But here, we're going to go you want to go like 1 or 2 bars from where you want the projections to start. So in this case, if I wanted to see, I mean, I would have done this in advance, but if I wanted to see if there was any timing at this last low, I want like 2 days before the 26th. So where is that? So I'm just going forward. So let's say right before the 26th. I'm going to do my start projections 14 days past the marker. And it has to do with the relative scores. But I'll start it there. I usually just keep the default. If you want to go further out than 66 bars forward in time, you can. The swing file that it's using is my SMH daily, and we're projecting from the December 3rd pivot. You want to have, okay, this is where you're going to go, and you're going to, if you downloaded that file into the DT sets folder, then you can choose the cycles that I use, okay, and that would be CB new. And for trading day counts, I don't use them. So I set it to none. Calendar days, I don't use them. I set it to none. So have those 3 settings this way. If you want to make your own settings, you'll be able to. But if you click on my time cycle ratio set, it's going to tell you what the distribution is and the weighting. So for example, 100% of a alternate time projection is the highest score in here. So of any alternate time projection. So time symmetry to me is very, very important. So I've weighted this much higher. 618 is very important, especially of a prior low to high or high to low. So those have higher weightings. Okay, you can play with this and make your own, but I added 786 and 1272. I don't think that that's in Bob's. So you have access to my time cycles if you want them. So now once you have all of this set in the setup area, setup tab, click on table and histogram. Now you have the choice of only showing the scores that are above a certain, you know, like let's say I'm only going to show scores above 30. You know, it'll do that. I usually just show them all. Whoops. Okay. And then you can see that there's a standout right here. So then what I do is I save histogram and show below the chart, which is right here. Or you could just save the histogram and print it. You can print a summary. I don't really use it. I just pretty much, I either take a snapshot of the histogram if I want to show something on Twitter or whatever, or I hit save histogram and show below the chart. Name it. If I am projecting for a low, I name it low, and I'll just say SMH low, and I'll say, what were those dates? 12/25, 26 are the highest scoring dates. So those are the ones I want you to pay attention to for a possible low. The reason why you know that I'm looking for a low is because I've set it, because I've projected it from this last high. So I'm going to anticipate a possible low into any of these standout timing cycles. And it doesn't have to be like a total standout. You know, this next cycle could, you know, still turn the market. Okay, but you will basically, you know, as you move forward in time, you'll just run a new histogram and have it, you know, 1 or 2 days, you know, you're going to start projecting 1 or 2 days before current time, or from where you want to see if there was a cycle. Okay, so there it is. You know, I'm looking for a low in SMH between 12.25.26 plus or minus a day. Boom, you can't make that stuff up. Okay, so now let's look at as if it was current time. So let's run for the next possible high. And this will be different than the outright cycles that I put on this chart. But so let's cursor over to, I'm going to use shift and the right arrow key. And now it's going to project from the December 26th low for the next possible high. So I've got the marker in the right place. I'm going to click on reports, dynamic time projection, make a new report, and then I want to see if there was timing at this last high, which was January 25th. So let's do it from January, the start projection from January 23rd, 2 days before that. Click on table and histogram. Okay, and then you can see that we have 24th, 25th, and pretty much January 31st through Feb 2nd, pretty high scoring dates. Okay, so let's just click on Save Histogram and show below the chart. And I'm going to call this high SMH. And then what did I say those dates were? The first ones, and I might, just show the first dates to begin with. Jan 24, 25. Click OK. And there's the next cycles for high. And you can click close on this. You can print a table if you want to see what the actual cycles are in there. It tells you. Close that up. And now you have the timing for the next highs. There was timing at this last high, and there's going to be timing early next week. Can you have spaces when you name? I think you can. I don't think it's like the regular, like a Windows file where you have to have it done a specific way. So just try it. If it gives you an error, then that means you can't. But I'm able to put dashes and stuff in there and weird characters. One other thing that I want to show you is if you don't want to show both of these, go like this, right click, and say tabbed, which means that these are on top of each other. So when you click on this one, it shows the timing for a low. When you click on this tab, it shows you the timing for a high. And sometimes I like keeping the old ones because this reminds me that I had timing at this last low. And then the next ones that I would look at, timing for the next high. Okay? So does that help? Do you have any last minute questions? I mean, the only other things that I will show you here is I always have this magnetized snap to bar, so it's easier to snap to a bar. Some of these other tools are just self-explanatory. You can shift the chart up, you can shift the chart down, you can shift it to the right. Where's the other one? Shift it to the left. Okay. And then there are other shortcuts, too. Like I can just use the left arrow key and it's moving it over, or the right arrow key and it's moving it back over. Anytime that you run the histogram, it goes into calendar day mode. So if you want it back to regular mode, you have to go back and take off the calendar days, and then these, you won't see the weekends in here. Okay, but if you want to see them, you say, oh, okay, this was a weekend, this was a weekend, There may have been a holiday in there, or here's the right. This was a holiday right here. Anyway, I don't use the logarithmic thing. I have no idea what it's for. If you do, feel free to use it. I don't really use this tool at all. I do use the hot bars. If you find that you can't grab something, it might be because you have the hot bars on by mistake, because there are automatic swings that are selected on a chart. So if you have this clicked on it by mistake, you'll only be able to use anything that is on the automatic swing file. Okay, so just have that checked when you need it, unchecked when you don't. You can make the chart taller or shorter. You can also do that by just going into the right hand of the price area and just move the mouse backwards and forward, and that will change that. Same thing on the bottom. Move the mouse, you can move this to the right, you can move it to the left just by dragging the mouse. So you'll get used to it, kind of how to use it. There's a lot of good stuff in here. This, I don't even know what this is. More bars. Okay, I guess this adds more bars. So let's say if you want to see more bars, you can click the plus sign. Oh, and this is going to show you more bars on the chart. If you want more bars, oh yeah, here's the other thing. You want to write down that you want to use the Z key. Will toggle from a small amount of bars to a large amount of bars. So if you click on the Z key, okay, now that's showing me almost all the data. Click on it again, now it's showing very little. Okay, click on it again, now it's really showing the most recent data only. So you can use that if you want to kind of move around with the amount of bars that you're playing with. That's the Z key. The M key might not show up unless you have a swing file. So click on S, and then click on M and see if it shows up. Because there are some shortcut keys, but I highly recommend that you download the okay, yeah, and CD will only be on a for a daily chart. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, if holding down the S key, okay, that's correct. All right, because it has to have a swing to work with, I believe, to use the M key. So you can either just make your own swing file, or you can do the automatic swing file. I usually like to make my own because, and then it makes my work a whole lot easier. The only time I use calendar days is when the program forces me to use the histogram. Otherwise, I do not use calendar days. That just happens automatically because I have the histogram. Now, if you want to see the histogram, you have to leave it on calendar days, because if I click on the histogram and shut off calendar days, they disappear. Okay, but I kind of think that trading days are more accurate than the calendar days. But recently, I mean, this low here, I've decided to do kind of both on most of the stocks and indexes that I use, and be aware of both. I do still think that the trading days would be more accurate in general. But I tell you, these are not bad. Just a lot of times I will do this if I'm in a rush to do some timing, or if I want to illustrate timing that I have with the visual below the chart. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions? I mean, I think this at least gets you started. There is a magnifying key. There's also a little bar up here that, if you click on it, you'll see that it will get rid of this data bar here, where it shows Wednesday the 30th. Oh, there's just a couple more things I have to show you. So if you click on that, you see it just disappeared. But my default is that it's on. Now you have an L, a freeze, and reset margins. So let's say that you have the chart all scrunched up like this, and you're trying to show something and you want to just change that. Click on reset margins, and it will automatically change it to where you can see it a little bit more easily. You don't, unless you're using this for to show something specific, you don't want to use the freeze key, because there's something that it won't allow you to do. But I don't use this. Sometimes I have it on by mistake, but I uncheck that. And then I don't really use prevent auto scroll with a new bar. I don't use that. Okay. One other thing that you probably wouldn't use on this particular workspace, but like when I want to show my 6 charts in the trading room and I want to kind of match them all up, well, I have more than 6 in this case, I just go to workspace, tile vertical, and then it just tiles them perfectly. Now in this case I got to get rid of some of these because we went through some areas. But that's how you can kind of get them all together. Workspace, you can do tile horizontal, tile vertical, cascade. Now I don't really use that, but anyway, one of the other things that I just realized that I should give you is if you want to print your chart. Now somebody says it doesn't work on theirs, but click on the F7 key and it brings this up. It tells you the window side. I capture as GIFs. You can also print it to a printer if you wanted to illustrate something, but I just capture the GIF, name it. So this is NQ120. Save it. I have it where it saves on my desktop, and then I typically post it on box.com when I save the charts. But you may want to make your own files. I save the charts if I'm doing a class slide or something like that. So actually I'm going to get this back to where I set it up for tomorrow's session. So I'm going to have to get rid of some of those charts. So workspace, tile vertical, and I'm going to have to get rid of the charts I'm not using. Okay, so are there any questions before I shut this down? Oh yeah, synchronicity. Oh yeah, okay, so that's the other thing you want to know. So let's say you're working on a bunch of charts and you want to save them. Usually what's going to happen, and I actually have 4 workspaces open. Don't open more than 4, your computer will crash. But I typically have 4 at a time open. But when you're going to close it, it'll ask you if you want to save it. So like I'll do save workspace, or workspace, save workspace as, and it's under, I have a group called synchronicity, and then I put my charts inside of there. I save my workspaces in there. So this is my workspace where I do a bunch of the separate stocks, like Baba, Baidu, and all that good stuff. So then you save it, and if you want to save it by a different name, you can, but you want to save the workspace so that when you open the program, oh, and here's an automatic saving of your workspace, because when I travel, I will move this from my desktop to my laptop, go to Tools, Configure, Auto Backup, automatically back up when exiting from DT, and I save it to my desktop, and then I drag it into a file. So that's what's set up there, to go onto my desktop, so that when I close this, when I close all of them, it will save all of my work, and I will be able to load that file that's on my desktop to my laptop when I travel. Okay, so I'm actually going to get rid of some of these. So let's see, I've got to get rid of, anyway, yeah, I'm going to get rid of that Apple chart, and I was using the 30-minute chart today. Amazon, I have to get it to where these are all showing correctly. Yeah, anyway, I'll mess with that later. But okay, so I'm going to yeah, I did the Forex chart today. You'll find it in the chart packet underneath the video. And it does work on the daily charts well. And it works, it's decent, probably on a 60-minute, but 5-minute chart, forget about the Forex data. But you can use a 5-minute chart in futures, and it works pretty well. Okay, so let me see about, I'm going to stop the recording here. Hopefully that doesn't knock me off. If it does, I'll be right back. And then I'm also going to stop the recording here.